Hey, it's Tuesday. It's May 19th, and I have Andrew Seidel, who is a constitutional law scholar from the Americans United organization, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and the author of a bunch of very good books, and you're going to love our conversation. I wanted to get his take on where the Christian nationalism movement is right now. He tracks it very closely, and it was a great conversation. If you want to listen to it now, you can jump to it. It starts at 17 minutes in. But I've got your headlines and a few clips for you. My power went out because it's so hot here in New York. So I've only got several clips. It'll be fine. I don't even know why I told you that, but I guess it's my way of telling you it's hot. Who cares? There are fires in California. The weather is extreme everywhere. I'm very glad to have you here joining me today. My daughter graduates from college tomorrow with her associate's degree from the Fashion Institute of Technology. Mom and dad are driving down. The whole family is going to be together in Central Park for the graduation. So that's what's going on Wednesday. Today is the school board election that I've been working not as hard as I wish I could have been on or should have been on, but I think we got a shot at winning back 2 seats. So pretty nervous, pretty uptight about that, but very much looking forward to getting the results late tonight, early tomorrow, and hoping that we gain 2 seats back on what is now a 6-1 MAGA board, or 5-2 actually, 5-2. So we will hopefully take 2 seats back, and then that would be some real progress. We haven't seen too much change in our school district as a result of the MAGA board, thank God, but I'm sure we would have seen a lot more diversity hires and all kinds of other things that just kind of goes unspoken for had there not been these people on our school board, an issue I care a tremendous amount about, and I think that the school board vote is probably one of the most important impacts your vote, your activism can have, which is why I get so involved in it every year. Okay, well, that's just a little bit about what's going on in my life. I hope everything is going okay where you're at. Maybe your kids are graduating, or grandkids, or maybe you're going through a thing, or just trying to figure out what to do and how not to be paralyzed with angst about what the hell is happening in the world and in our country. I hear you. I'm with you. That's what we do here at Stand Up. Very happy to have you. Let's get into the headlines that I've got for you and the clip show, which I've got each and every day. Can't do it without your support. This is an ad-free show. No ads. Thank you for listening, no matter what speed. What do you listen to? Time 1.5? Times 2? How fast am I talking right now? What if I talked really fast? Would that really mess you up? All right, let's get to those headlines. The big story yesterday was the slush fund that Tony Soprano, our president, got a hold of yesterday. That was probably, I think, the big story, the biggest, most impactful story. I've got a bunch of clips as it relates to that. Also, Elon Musk lost his blockbuster case against OpenAI, and it only required less than 2 hours of deliberation for a jury in Oakland, California to reject his $150 billion lawsuit against OpenAI and its chief executive, Sam Altman. You can read more about that case, but good to see Elon Musk losing, I guess, was a lot of the reaction. The Justice Department $1.8 billion fund I just mentioned could compensate Trump's allies. That is the biggest concern. I just read that headline different ways twice in other administration or regime news. A New York Times investigation found that American officials are still demanding a much larger role in Greenland. Interesting report. Also, new reports suggesting that more than 100,000 children have been separated from their parents during this Gestapo's immigration crackdown, which is a really hard figure to wrap your head around and understand, and it's a little spirit breaking, no doubt, to read that. The horror that they have wrought on so many immigrant families, many of which were essential workers, good people doing really important work in this country, for sure. And at least 3 men were fatally shot yesterday at a San Diego mosque before the 2 suspected shooters, both teenagers, were found dead nearby. I guess they think that they killed themselves. It's a crazy story. It's a horrific story. It feels like not enough attention was being paid by, but maybe that was just my algorithms were paid to it. But anytime there's a shooting at a religious house of worship, whether it be a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, or anything similar to that, it should be a pretty big deal, and the government at every level and law enforcement should be looking into it and doing everything they can to prevent that, but not the case. And I haven't gotten too read into it, but I'm sure we'll talk more and learn more about it in the next couple of days as we do about all these horrific shootings. And I'm sure that the White House is up in arms about a shooting at a mosque, and they'll make a big deal of it. Also, yesterday, Dick Tater Tot said that he authorized a new wave of attacks against Iran, but that he was holding off after 3 Gulf leaders requested a little more time to negotiate a nuclear deal. So, like the headlines yesterday were he was about to attack Iran, and then he decided not to at the last second. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yep. In Minnesota, state prosecutors charged an ICE agent in the shooting of a Venezuelan immigrant. That's some justice begun. Here's some injustice. The defense secretary, DUI hire Pete Hegseth, spoke at a campaign rally in Kentucky. You can't do that. That is an absolute breach of military decorum. And if you can find anything similar in history with any other Secretary of Defense, let us know. The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has evaded the country's testing because it was caused by a rare species of the virus. Lots to talk more about with that. I saw this headline yesterday. Doctors' visits for children's anxiety rose more than 250% over the last decade. So if you have a child, if you have a teenager now, then, and they deal with a lot of anxiety, as my younger daughter certainly does, struggles with it more, well, then you are one of millions of Americans. No shame in it, and only coping mechanisms, only solutions, medications, whatever it really takes. Writing, journaling, therapy, meditation, exercise. That's for all of us. It's a crazy number, and it's a study of nearly 2 million children. So absolutely worth learning more about. Maybe I can have a guest on to talk about that one. Another shakeup at the Food and Drug Administration. An official involved in scrutinizing the safety of antidepressants, COVID-19 vaccines, and other widely used therapies has been removed from her role for the agency's drug program. This is the Associated Press reporting about Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue. She'll be replaced by the FDA's acting drug center director, who is actually just a bag of crystals. That's who she's being replaced with. Dr. Hogue said in a social media post late Friday that she was fired from the agency, adding, "I learned so much and leave with no regrets." Her departure, the latest in an ongoing shakeup at the very powerful regulatory agency. I'm sure it'll be fine. So nothing to be too concerned with there. And those are the headlines that I've gathered for you here on a Tuesday. Let's get to those clips. First, let's listen to Rachel Scott at ABC News. She's a good reporter, and this is kind of a very, very objective report. She doesn't call it a slush fund, but setting up what we need to know. And there is the voice of Groper Cleveland in this clip, so I apologize for that. It's very brief, but it helps set up this story about what you need to know a little bit, and then we'll get some reaction to this slush fund.
This morning, sources say the president is one step closer to creating a new $1.7 billion fund of taxpayer money to pay his allies. ABC News learning the president is expected to settle a $10 billion lawsuit he brought against his own government as early as today. Sources say as part of the deal, the president would drop the suit in exchange for a commission to pay Trump allies who claim they were mistreated by the Biden administration. One group that could benefit from that, the rioters who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. The president sued the IRS earlier this year, claiming damages from the leak of his tax returns in 2019. He has also sued his own Justice Department for $230 million for investigations he faced during the Biden administration. An American president has never sued his own administration, something the president acknowledged last fall.
It's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And, that decision would have to go across my desk.
Sources say the president would have control over who runs the commission and the authority to remove members without cause, and that the commission would not be required to disclose to the American people how it runs or its decision-making process. Most Republicans staying silent, but some moderates shocked.
I don't even know how that's allowable to happen.
Democrats calling it an abuse of power.
It's outright corruption. What we're seeing here is outright corruption.
Only Congress has the power to appropriate money, and Congress never voted on creating this $1.7 billion political slush fund at the Department of Justice, and Congress would never pass that.
So sources caution that the details of this plan are not finalized until publicly announced. In a statement, the president's legal team says that the president continues to hold those who wrong America accountable. The Justice Department declined to comment, George.
No question. This will head to the courts. Okay, Rachel, thanks very much.
Again, this is taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm. All right, there you go. That's ABC yesterday morning. Here is Rachel Maddow talking to Congressman Jamie Raskin, who's a constitutional law scholar, of course, on Maddow on MS Now last night.
Is there anything else like this in U.S. history?
Nothing like it. It's thoroughly illegal and unconstitutional. Of course, Congress never voted to set up a $1.776 billion political slush fund for the president, and we never would pass such a thing. So it's a complete violation of congressional appropriations powers. Moreover, even if Congress wanted to do such a thing, which we never would, it would be unconstitutional because the 14th Amendment says that money cannot be spent out of the federal fisc for the purposes of repaying people for insurrection or rebellion against the United States. And look, but this is his MO now with all of these political slush funds. That's what the Board of Peace is. They took $1.5 billion from the State Department. That was money that was supposed to be for disaster relief. Then he sets up this Board of Peace. He gets $1 billion from the Qataris, $1 billion from the Saudis, and so on. We don't know anything about it. Is it public, private, profit, not-for-profit, registered in America, registered in Qatar? We don't know anything about it other than Donald Trump is chairman for life. He controls all that money. So that in itself is a violation of the Foreign Government Emoluments Clause, because all those foreign states and kings and princes are giving money, and the Domestic Emoluments Clause, which says the president is limited to his salary in office and cannot derive any other money from the U.S. Treasury. But the whole administration now is just corruption, highway robbery every day.
Jamie Raskin last night, and here's my friend and yours, Glenn Kirshner.
In case you had any doubt about the importance of the upcoming midterm elections, they may be the only shot we have at stopping or at least slowing down Donald Trump's depraved plan to give our taxpayer dollars to the rioters, the insurrectionists who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, trying to unlawfully, unconstitutionally keep Donald Trump in power after he lost a presidential election. Now, you've got to follow the bouncing ball of depravity and corruption on this story.
Watch the rest of that on YouTube. Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner, always great, of course. And here is legal analyst Dan Abrams on his SiriusXM show, I think.
So this $1.7+ billion settlement, and I put it in quotes, is moving forward. The taxpayers of the United States will now be funding a slush fund for President Trump's allies who have been whining for years that the government was weaponized against them and that they're entitled to some sort of damages. This is a really big deal. You know, a lot of you ask, particularly on the left, Dan, why don't you get angrier at the Trump administration about this and this and that? And, you know, you always try to find the best in them. And part of the reason is, so when I get mad, you listen. And I am mad. This is a complete and total outrage.
All right. He goes on. Obviously, those are the clips that I've got on that. We'll certainly be talking about that with guests here on the show. I mentioned it to Andrew Seidel, who's got a great take on it. That's coming up. But first, I've got some comedy for you. Like I said, I didn't get to as many clips last night. The power went out here when I was doing that part of my evening work. And I did get to get a piece of Jimmy Kimmel's monologue last night where he was making fun of the insanity of Presidentia's posting on social media.
And got back to the very serious business of posting crazy things. The Ayatollah reposted a bunch of slop. I still don't know if he understands that it isn't real or not. He posted an image of himself walking with a handcuffed extraterrestrial. Why, we don't know. All we know for sure is that the alien appears to be doing CrossFit. He's in very good shape. Senator Mike Lee, another Trump zombie from Utah, reposted that photo and wrote, "Not sure what this means, but I'm here for it." I'll tell you what it means, Mike. It means the guy with the nuclear codes is out of his goddamn mind. That's what it means. But I'm glad you're there for it. He's there for it. Trump also posted about how young he looks. He said President Trump ages in reverse. Like, you're not aging in reverse. Wearing diapers does not mean you're aging in reverse. Okay? And then the White House jumped on the crazy train and posted this, suggesting that Trump would be the next James Bond. Grab him by the octopussy. We got a new James Bond in town. I think 007 is his approval rating right now. Imagine being a very unpopular president in the middle of a very unpopular war. The cost of everything is skyrocketing. Gas is very expensive, and you are spending your time posting online about how hot you are, how you captured an alien, and how you should be the next James Bond. Well, at least he wasn't golfing through the war again, I guess. Oh, he was? Oh, yes, he was. When he wasn't posting himself off over the weekend, Unhappy Gilmore was golfing again. Trump has now played golf on 111 of his first 484 days in office. The same man who back in 2014 tweeted, "Can you believe that with all of the problems and difficulties facing the U.S., President Obama spent the day playing golf? Worse than Carter," has now golfed more than 22% of his second term. And we know this from a website called didtrumpgolftoday.com. This is a real website. That's our president trying to hit a ball out of a trap made from clumps of his own hair. I don't know what that is, but...
All right, there you go. Love it. And now it's time to get to my guest. Remember, can't do it without your support. Please sign up for a paid subscription right now. Go to patreon.com/PeteDominic or Substack @PeteDominic. Get a paid subscription there for $5 or more. Many of you pay a lot more. You can always upgrade and pay more if you're getting a lot out of it. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, time to get to my conversation with Andrew Seidel. He is a constitutional law scholar, and he is communications director, I believe, over at Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Good friends with our friend, Dr. Will Judy of Secular Houston in Texas. You should get both of his books, American Crusade, How the Supreme Court is Weaponizing Religious Freedom, and The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism Is Un-American. Loved this talk, and we start with me saying, are you on every platform, on all of the media, social media places? Because you should be. I love hearing your voice. Let's do it right now with Andrew Seidel.
I tell you what, I would do Twitch if I could figure out how to easily play the Nintendo 64 version of GoldenEye on Twitch, like from my computer without having to do a whole lot of setup. I would do that for hours on end and talk about church-state separation, religious freedom. I would drink whiskey while I'm doing it. I think I could get an audience for it. I just don't have the bandwidth to set it up.
Well, I might set it up for you given that description. Okay. But also, is it that easy for you to talk about this issue that you could do a couple of other things? That's great. I wish I could talk about it the way you can talk about it. That's why I'm going to you and my friend John Fugelsang and our friend Dr. Will Judy, who is here. He is now joining us live. And what do we want to say about our friend Dr. Will Judy, who runs Secular Houston, is a great guy. And I just missed him when he was in New York this weekend because I was out of town.
He is truly one of the finest human beings I've ever met.
Oh, wow.
And is a wonderful activist who's doing really great work, like deep in the heart of Texas, as their song goes, to fight for our secular democracy, which is, kind of everything and truly under attack right now. Doing a ton of great work with local candidates and organizing community, building community on the ground. I'm so impressed. And he's doing it while he's a doctor. It's not like he doesn't have other shit going on in his life,
Yep. He's a superstar. That's what I was going to say. He's doing it while he is a physician and a dad, like a devoted dad to his girls. And yet, he's got a full purposeful life. And I just love watching the work that he is doing in Texas. And I've learned a lot from him. And hopefully I'll be interviewing these three members that are running for a school board. It's school board season. Our election is tomorrow. I wanted to ask you about that, Andrew. Of course, this is an issue that you know everything about, and you know how important it is to have the school board be people who regardless of what they believe on testing and class size, they believe in the separation of church and state. They believe in public education, supporting public education, and we are being taken over. My board was taken over by Christian nationalists who attack the LGBT community to get elected. It's been horrible here, and we're in the fight. The election is tomorrow, but talk a little bit about where that fight lies and how important the school board. I say it's the most important vote you can cast.
I mean, I do think it is going to have one of the biggest impacts on your life, and especially if you're a parent, but for everybody. I mean, public schools are kind of one of the last bastions of the separation of church and state in this country. It is under attack everywhere, that separation, including in our public schools, but it's the place where we've been able to hold the line more than anything else. And that's because when you allow religion to enter the classroom from the top down, right? So we're not talking about kids who are like scared of a math test, right? There's this old joke that people love to tell that as long as there are math tests in public schools, there's going to be prayer. Like, kids are allowed to pray before their lunches, all that stuff. What the problem is when you have teachers who are imposing prayer down, when you have administrators and principals and the school board pushing prayer and religion and 10 Commandments posters down onto other people's kids. That's where the problem lies. That's what the separation of church and state prevents from happening, or is supposed to prevent from happening. And the reason is because if you don't hold that line in our public schools, and the 10 Commandments case is like a great example of this, right?
Yeah.
You've got Louisiana and Texas and Alabama and Arkansas have passed these laws, and the organization I work for in my day job, Americans United, is suing 3 of those states. And they passed these laws saying we got to put our version of the 10 Commandments up in public school classrooms. And politicians have written what they think the 10 Commandments should be, edited the Bible, by the way, and they're slapping those up in the classrooms. And all that is doing is dividing kids along religious lines. It is these politicians saying, you who worship this God, right? I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. And that's the big line at the top of the poster, right? You are the favored children, the special kids.
Oh, yeah.
The kids that agree with the God of our government. And everybody else, you're second-class citizens. Right? You're worshiping the wrong God. That's literally what the poster says to these kids. It is dividing kids along religious lines, alienating them, ostracizing them. It is fundamentally un-American, and shame on every one of those.
That's always like, I'm not a scholar on any of this, but like if you had a pragmatic conversation about it, whether it be the prayer before the game or at halftime or whatever, like if the coach was like, listen, not everybody here is religious, so you don't in any way have to participate in the prayer. I'm not going to say anything about any specific God, but I'm going to do a God prayer. And, even I would be against that, but I would be like, all right, as long as you're not being specific and as long as you're making sure that, the kids that think religion is crazy, aren't in any way marginalized and they're respected and they can do whatever they want to do and not feel excluded. But that's never going to happen. And that's just a dumb time wasting thing for me to say. I'm just saying, like, the idea that they enforce it from the top down and advocate for it and lobby for it and now have it. They have so much control. They've made so much progress bringing religion back into public education, starting just with the 10 Commandments, but also just minimizing and marginalizing anybody who's not of their brand of Christianity, frankly, right? In so many other ways.
Yes, absolutely. And let's talk about your hypo for a second, because it's a good one. And I think there's probably a lot of your listeners who are like, yeah, I kind of understand that. And the problem that we face when we're talking about public schools, and the reason that courts up until this iteration of the Supreme Court that has been, effectively captured by Christian nationalists, the reason that the court had been so good for so long about protecting those kids is because there is so much pressure on those kids to conform. You don't really have the ability, if your coach says, hey, I'm going to do a prayer, you can join or not if you want, to opt out. Those kids feel like they have to pray to play. And in fact, we know that happened in the case of that coach that reached the Supreme Court. Now, he was not given the kind of prayer you were talking about.
Oh, no.
Those kids feel, right? Like, you don't want to miss out on what the majority, like, fucking everybody remember high school and how awful it was to feel not like you're part of the in crowd, right? Like, you're going to honestly...
Even if you were, I was in the in crowd, and if I wasn't in the in crowd that was in at this guy's house right now, I was excluded. So even though I had a ton of friends, if I wasn't, everybody understands how that feels, and how when it's coming from a teacher or an adult, that shit's crazy.
And that's the second
easy to prevent.
So important, Pete, because it's like, it is not the province of the state, of some politicians that were elected to tell your kid what is right or wrong when it comes to religion, to tell anybody's kid what is right or wrong with religion, or to recommend, hey, we're just going to go ahead and pray to, a generic God right now. Do it or don't it. Like, that's not up to our government.
No,
right?
it's not.
Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers even talked about this, right? Before the Federalist Papers, everybody knows A. Ham now, right?
Sure.
Amazing. But the Federalist Papers are those documents that were written to say, hey, we really need to ratify this Constitution. This is like our way forward. This is the way that we can do things. And in there, Hamilton writes that our government has, quote, no particle of spiritual jurisdiction, right? It has no power to recommend that you worship one way or another, let alone to say that you must worship one way or another. It's just not a power that we, the people, have given to our government. And parents should be up in arms about politicians trying to tell their kids to worship this particular version of this particular God on this particular day.
Yes, indeed. And in any way that it shows its face or form, it is something that, every parent, it drives me crazy as a parent. My daughter's now 18 and 21, and watching them go through public schools, play some sports, all of it. Whenever there was any kind of, there wasn't even a sniff of it, because we have a pretty good fire line between church and state in our public schools, overwhelmingly still, certainly in blue states, but it's not the case, and we have to fight back against it everywhere it shows. 250 years is the anniversary.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal, and there's an orgy of Christian nationalism happening currently. Trump's 250th is an orgy of Christian nationalism. Let me see the full quote. Y'all, we are not ready for this. And everybody needs to go subscribe right now to Andrew L. Seidel on Substack, where you can read that article, which you're going to tell me about right now. That is a fucking hilarious way of putting it. And why did you decide to call it an orgy of Christian nationalism?
Yeah, I mean, this is just Trump announced this at the National Prayer Breakfast back in February. I've been watching it closely ever since. And it's actually been it was cloaked in secrecy, this 250. There was not a lot of information out there about it. They did a good job of kind of not divulging anything. And actually, the reason I think they did that is because every speaker, and I'm still going through. I mean, look, some of the videos of this thing are 9 hours long. And
I didn't mention it. I don't think you did either. Yesterday, you mean?
Yes. This was yesterday. This was Sunday, May 17th. This orgy.
Yeah.
I published my piece a little bit before.
There was a huge event yesterday in D.C. In case people didn't see clips about it, but there was a major Pete Hegseth headlined. I believe
Pete Hegseth, Mike Johnson, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump. It was basically the leaders of this Christian nationalist regime in partnership with the leaders of the Christian nationalist religion. So people like Robert Jeffress, Franklin Graham, so all of and Paula White, all of the, and some of those overlap. So all of these leaders of our government and these leaders of these Christian nationalist churches and sects kind of blending together and coming together, not to honor our nation's history, to rewrite the history and to push just an insane amount of propaganda down our throats. And this was a government function, which was one thing that was unclear going in. But it was at least partially funded by taxpayers. It occurred on government land. I mean, it was a government-sponsored church service, is what it is, which is kind of one of the things you're not supposed to have in a country where you separate church and state. So I wrote this piece on Substack just predicting what it was going to look like. And looking at the agenda that Mike Johnson sent around, noting that every single individual performer on that list was a Christian, a conservative Christian, a MAGA Christian, a Christian nationalist. And so far, from what I've been able to see, again, 9 hours, so I haven't watched all of it. It was exactly as predicted.
Look at that graphic.
Okay, yeah. So I will confess. This is, when I was writing this, I really, really, really wanted a version of Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights that was this 250th Jubilee with Trump and Hegseth and Paula White and Jeffress and all of them. Because like when I was reading the invitation from Mike Johnson, that was the first thing that entered my head. I'm like, oh my God, this is like January 6th, but as a prayer worship service on the National Mall. Like it's these two things. And Hieronymus Bosch's painting popped in my head. And so this is the first time I've ever asked ChatGPT to do something for me. And it was that.
I thought of you yesterday because I saw Mike Johnson talking, and he said, we don't get our rights from government, we get our rights from God. And then I imagine your brain exploding. And so, because if people haven't read The Founding Myth, Andrew's book, you're kind of one of the best, I would say, young authors. A lot of people have been writing about this, but I feel like your writing and when you wrote it and the way that you wrote it, The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism Is Un-American, published in 2019. And because you're a constitutional lawyer, so you really get this. And so when I saw that yesterday, not only that comment, I didn't watch too much of it because I was living my life, but what do you want to say about what was said yesterday or what was done specifically in terms of just if you want to correct any historical thing that was done or said? Like we don't get our rights from God.
Most of what they said was bullshit. It's interesting. The Founding Myth came out like 7 years ago, almost to the day of when they did this.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Apparently not enough people have read your book.
Great to predict these things. Well, listen, if you do want the talking points from Christian nationalism rebutted, their propaganda, you want to know the arguments that are going to rebut their propaganda, The Founding Myth is the book for you. The idea that our rights come from God, not government, is thoroughly and fully debunked in there. And if rights are given by God, if we have these things called God-given rights, and that's it, those same rights can be taken away by the men claiming to speak for God. Those men who were preaching on the National Mall yesterday, the Franklin Graham's, the Robert Jeffersons, right? And they're not shy about telling us what rights you're going to have, right? Women, you're not going to have rights. LGBTQ people, not going to have rights. The rights are going to be for those straight, white, conservative Christian men to the exclusion of everybody else. And that's the central goal of Christian nationalism. That is why they push for God-given rights. Not because they're stronger or better or more historically accurate, but because they can take your rights away once you agree that, yes, rights are given by God. That's not the system that we have in this country. And I will be the first to tell you that the system that we have in this country, it has never been perfected and has been broken for a long time. But our government is based on the idea of human rights, right? We, the people, have certain rights by virtue of being people, human rights. Now, we've done a terrible job of defining who is a person for much of our history, but we are working ever closer to that promise of all the people. It's just still taking us a long time to get there. And if we let these Christian nationalists seize power even more and shove their version of God-given rights down our throat, we're going to regress, not progress.
So well said. And if that doesn't prove that you should get Andrew's book, then I don't know what will, but you should get it. You've written more than one book. What's the name of your other book? I have them both.
American Crusade, which is also the name of Pete Hegseth's book. I will say mine is way better. That's about how the Supreme Court is weaponizing religious freedom. And then if you're a super nerd, I have also edited a law textbook for law students about religious freedom.
I'm a super nerd. I want to learn all of it. It's such an important issue. Let me just, in terms of what the Supreme Court has decided, instead of asking you about a specific case, I just thought, why don't I just ask Andrew his thoughts on where we're at with this court in terms of this issue and everything that American laws and the Constitution have to say about religion's role in our society and our lives. But it would seem that you generally win and get your way more likely if you've got laws and lawmakers on your side. We've taken a few steps forward and a couple steps back. When it comes to voting rights and abortion rights, we've certainly taken steps back. So you don't get to keep those laws. Democracy it's not how it works. You got to keep working to save it. But what are your thoughts on this court and what has been wrought?
Yeah, this court is captured. It's broken. It was captured by the Christian nationalist movement. There's a guy named Leonard Leo, who some of you may have heard of. I talk about him in American Crusade.
We talk about him a lot here.
Yep, he spent $580 million capturing the U.S. Supreme Court from.
Well, did he spend, or did he get? Who gave him that money to spend? Is that a fair caveat?
Yes, that the more nuanced way to say that would be, we have been able to trace to Leonard Leo's network of donors and organizations $580 million that was spent to capture the Supreme Court in those years. So that's from the blocking of Merrick Garland ever getting a hearing right after Scalia dies, all the way up through jamming Amy Coney Barrett onto the bench during Trump 1.0. And the reason that they targeted the court was because they could buy, right? You don't spend $580 million to put impartial justices on the bench, right? Like, they bought one entire branch of the federal government for a little over $500 million, which is kind of a steal, to be honest. Like, that's not bad. And the reason that they targeted the court was because they know all of the ideas and policies that they want to push are unpopular. You know, whether it's curtailing birth control or abortion pills or abortion rights or LGBTQ equality, you name basically any policy that the Christian nationalists are after, it is wildly unpopular. So they went to the most anti-democratic branch of our government that they could get and captured it. And now it is just destroying the fabric of our democracy. I mean, this Voting Rights Act, this most recent Voting Rights Act decision, is abominable, right? We're having leaders choose their voters instead of voters choose their leaders. And that's, again, what Leonard Leo was after. There was a former employee of Leo's who said the reason that they were he talked about the reason that they targeted the court: abortion, gay rights, contraception. Conservatives didn't have a chance if public opinion prevailed, so they needed to stack the court.
Conservatives don't have a chance if public opinion prevails. There are more of us than there are of them, but they have so much of the power in our country. So it doesn't matter that on issues where there's 80 or 80-20, we are going to lose those issues because of – I just wanted to really underscore that. You've said it so many times. Yeah. I feel like it's not – you can't just bowl over it. Yeah.
Well, no, you can't roll over it. And in fact, we're coming up on really important midterm elections. And, one thing I am looking at when I'm looking at candidates, especially when I'm trying to balance two candidates, is who's talking about the Supreme Court and fixing this broken Supreme Court and expanding it and trying to figure out a way to put in place something like, some sort of limits on the terms that these justices serve for. And I just want to be clear with people. I have looked at all of these in depth. You can trust me or not on this. I do not care about the particular fixes, except to say that we need them. And those fixes need to be because you cannot let special interests buy one branch of the government and then impose anti-democratic policies on all of us. We cannot allow that to stand. That is a valid reason to want to fix and expand the Supreme Court.
Right.
And I would say let's do it beyond, I don't care. Let's do it beyond 4, right? There's no reason to say we should only add 4 justices. We should add 9. We should add 19. Add 100 for all I care. It does not matter. What we need to do is fix that court. That is an absolute prerequisite to any other thing that you care about fixing in this country, is fixing the Supreme Court first. So if the candidates you're looking at are not talking about that, that's not on their radar, you can't find it on their website, ask them about it. That's something that I think is just an absolute necessity above everything else.
Yes, I think it is. And I want to talk to you further about where we go there. But we will have to reconnect soon to do that, because there's a couple other things I wanted to ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Which include, I just had to get your take on what seems to be a giant story today, you being a lawyer, and I'm sure this touches your world somehow, but I just, obviously getting to talk to you, I want to get your opinion. The Trump administration sued America. The DOJ settled. Trump sued Trump. They got $1.6 billion. It's being called a slush fund to protect people who they say were wrongly prosecuted. How are you looking at this, or how are you even framing this? I'm trying to find the best headline to read, and because it's always framed differently. But I've seen it called slush fund a lot.
Yeah, so here's let me just set the table a little bit for listeners. So
sorry, I should have done better.
No. This is why you bring a lawyer on. Donald Trump sued the Trump IRS. That's the short version of what happened, okay? For like $10 billion. The suit that he brought, the underlying lawsuit, it has to deal with like the leaking of his tax returns. The suit is bullshit, right? At least the damages claim is bullshit. Meaning there have been other cases like this, including brought by billionaires. Nobody gets a payout. You don't get damages for this happening. Okay. The lawsuit is bullshit. What Trump is doing, though, is saying, hey, the DOJ now is considering settling this lawsuit with Donald Trump for $1.7 billion and effectively a promise that Trump and his families will never be audited or investigated again, which is beyond insane. Both of those things are just, they're too much to stomach. Really. So it is, and the way that people need to think about that is theft. Donald Trump is stealing from you. He is stealing $1.7 billion from us, the American people. If this settlement goes through, that's what is happening. After the story broke and it became kind of headline news last weekend, then Trump said, oh, well, I'm going to actually form an organization. I'm going to donate this to charity, and the charity is going to be in charge of, going after. Basically, this is the slush fund thing. And first of all, if you believe that Donald Trump is going to donate that money to charity, like truly, I've got some other things.
Well, it's not about whether or not he's lying. It's not about whether or not he's lying about. That every time he says he's going to donate money to charity, when journalists follow up, he doesn't, including to children's cancer and veterans charities. He uses them. He uses people who are raising money and he keeps the money. It's the grossest grift of them all, is stealing charity money or saying you're going to give it and then not giving it. It's so gross.
It is. It's terribly gross. And I mean, at best, even if he does do this, he is going to set up an organization that is going to act as a weapon, a political weapon for him and his family, not as something that's actually going to do charitable work to make society better. And my take on this was that if there are government lawyers in the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice that would be in charge of litigating this lawsuit and settling it, those lawyers ought to be disbarred. Because this is theft, and if those lawyers are contributing, aiding and abetting Donald Trump stealing from the American people like this, they ought to be disbarred. Right. And I think they ought to hear that threat from us, the American people, before they go into this and say, "Yeah, we are going to go ahead and settle this." They ought to know that they are going to lose their livelihood if they take part in this. And to me, this is so bald-faced and so out in the open and so insane that we are acting or speaking about this like it is an actual legitimate case. I really do think we ought to consider, when we get out of this, charges against some of these people who are involved. It is mind-boggling to me.
It is mind-boggling, and we are at a point in time and the conversation around such things that we are at a loss for a syntax or vocabulary that does the lifting that needs to be done. And I'm not an expert, so I'm not sure what case is going to be more impactful. I'm an optimist too, which there's no college for, no degree for. So what I do know is what often happens is there's a ruling or there's these cuts in important federal government agencies, and then there's a lawsuit, and the ruling gets overturned, and the people's jobs get back or they're made whole. That happens a lot, but people don't see that secondary headline. In this case, that's why it's one of the, I feel like, most outrageous parts of it is this is decided, right? This is going to be, he's going to get almost $2 billion of taxpayer money that he can use however he wants with no oversight at all. Yeah. Just the king gets the money. And he's not, are those people actually that are supposed to be getting that money actually going to get it? Trump's Justice Department announces $1.7 billion fund slammed as slush fund. DOJ sets up $1.7 billion anti-weaponization fund after Trump drops IRS lawsuit. I mean, this is not, is this the final word on this issue, or does it get appealed? I mean, is this his money now?
It's a settlement. It's a settlement.
It's a settlement, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, goes to the importance of this election, right? It's controlled by the government. And there will presumably be policies and procedures in place. I mean, but Donald Trump is president. I mean, there was this filing in the ballroom case that came right after the event, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, this filing, and it looked, I just talked about this on my podcast, it looked like Donald Trump dictated this court filing to the top 3 officials at the DOJ who had their name on the briefing. It was like one of the craziest things.
I gotta see it. I mean, you don't have any evidence of that. It just looks like it.
I cannot prove. Let me be clear about that. I cannot prove that Donald Trump dictated this. But here, I'll pull it up real quick. I firmly believe there is, like, I would bet money on it that Donald Trump dictated this. And maybe they did like a little bit of, kind of cleansing, but I really don't think so. And let me just read. So this is in the case about this trying to stop the ballroom, which a court has enjoined any work on the ballroom twice already. So this is National Trust for Historic Preservation versus National Park Service. This is a document submitted to a court. This is how it begins. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is a beautiful name, but even their name is fake, and fake is in all caps.
What? No. So he did write it. Yes, but
even their name is fake because they add the words "in the United States" to the National Trust for Historic Preservation, making it sound like a government agency, all cap, or not all caps, but caps, which it is not. In fact, the United States refused to continue funding it in 2005 because they strongly disagree with their mission and objectives. This is very bad for our country. Country is capitalized. They stopped many projects that are worthy and hurt many others. I mean, like, it is. And then, okay, this is the part where it really gives it away. They're talking about the lawsuit and the group bringing it. But this did not deter them because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, commonly referred to as TDS, as noted by Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. And are represented by the lawyer for Barack Hussein Obama.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean, right?
We don't. I was trying to, like, jokingly say how it might be written, and then that's what I would have said.
Yeah, it is. Like, it seems like he dictated it, and maybe they polished it like a little bit, but not much. I don't know. Yeah.
Let me just ask you before you got to go. I know you get a hard out in a few minutes, so I'm just going to ask you just to weigh in on the Secretary of Defense /War DUI hire Pete Hegseth, and how he has brought so much Christian nationalism into the Pentagon, including his spiritual leader who hates women and black people. Yeah. Doug Wilson, we've talked a lot about here, but what do you want to say in the final moments here? Just give me your read on how bad that's gotten, how bad that's been.
Oh, I mean, it's really bad. I don't know if people maybe didn't even see this. It kind of was a blip because it happened at Christmas. But Franklin Graham, preaching on this past Sunday on the Mall, was also preaching at Christmas time at the Pentagon, and he said, "Don't forget, our God is a God of war." And then he talked about the genocide committed against the Amalekites in the Bible, and used that to preach to our military about the work that they're doing. So that's nice. I mean, let me put it like this: Trump and his cabinet are forcing Christian nationalism on Americans. I mean, just this endless stream of Christian nationalism, right? And especially on federal employees, right? Those people who work at the Pentagon, for instance.
It's crazy.
Right? I mean, we've got Pentagon prayer services, social media posts talking about one homeland under God. We've got Marco Rubio is sending out video sermons talking about Jesus's resurrection, and the Department of State is pushing those out. We've got White House advisors comparing Trump to Jesus. Trump himself putting out imagery of himself as Jesus, right? And one of the things that happened was that Secretary Rollins at the USDA sent 100,000 employees a number of proselytizing emails, Christmas emails, and one on Easter, just talking about our faith and our religion and pushing her version of her God onto all of these employees. And Americans United for Separation of Church and State, along with Democracy Forward and Brian Schwartz Law, are suing Rollins as a first step in rebuilding the wall of separation and stopping these gross abuses of power. So I'm really hoping that other federal employees, maybe including folks, to your question, who are at the DOD or who are at the Pentagon, will also find the courage to stand up and reach out and contact Americans United and say, hey, I want to also bring a lawsuit against, Pete Hegseth or against, and Marco Rubio, all of these different cabinet level secretaries, officials who are abusing their power to force their personal religion onto everybody else.
Such important points, such important work, such an important voice. That's Andrew Seidel's, And you also, we didn't mention it, I'll mention it in the intro and the outro. Americans United, if you're not supporting that org, that's where Andrew works. And he's speaking as Andrew Seidel here, not on behalf of AU. Am I supposed to say that? Yeah. Do you need to say that?
Yeah, I'm hanging out with you because you and I are buds. I'm not here in my AU capacity.
Right, just to be clear.
This is like Andrew after hours.
This is like,
going back to the beginning of our conversation.
I feel like this is like T-shirt Andrew.
Yeah, it's Andrew after hours / maybe OnlyFans / Twitch.
All that stuff. No affiliation at all on those cases. It's so great talking to you and catching up with you. It's been way too long. I'm sorry. I've invited you to the party, but let's make it a more regular thing. Go support AU. Go follow Andrew. Go check out his new Substack. He's a great writer, as most lawyers are. Andrew L. Seidel. Go support him. Follow him on Substack. One of the most important, smartest voices out there on the most important issue, I will argue. Andrew, thank you as always, buddy.
Thank you so much, my friend. Always a pleasure. We'll talk soon.
I hope so.
Definitely sooner than last time.
For sure,
right.
For sure. And that is it. Andrew Seidel, Americans United. Get his books. Support him on all the social media. Thank you for being here today. I hope you're doing all right. Check in with yourself. Make sure you do all the stuff, the self-care, so you can help other people. And I appreciate you so much for being you and being here. And John Carroll taking us out, as he does every day. I will talk to you tomorrow, and hopefully we win the Board of Education election, and I'll be in a real good spirits if that's the case. Be the change you want to see, folks.
You better stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you gotta stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up, you got to stand up, you got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. Point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. While you lying awake wondering where the money all went, it'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right. We got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be told us up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.